Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about a question that I hear a lot. Is the Nintendo Switch too old? This is a conversation that I see pop up online every now and then by either going trending on Twitter or by a random video popping up onto my recommendations on YouTube. It's kind of a meme at this point, honestly, and it almost seems like there's a cycle. A new game comes out that pushes the Switch's hardware beyond its limits. The graphics don't look great. Discourse begins, people tweet, people type, everyone screams and shouts that there needs to be a Switch Pro, a bunch of YouTubers make videos about it, and then the conversation dies down until the cycle repeats itself again. We are currently in this stage of the cycle. But is there any truth to the Nintendo Switch being too old? The short answer is yes. Yes, there is. Technically, you could say that the Switch was old when it first launched back in 2017. What? Old at launch? Let's take a deeper dive, shall we? But before we take that deep dive, follow me to the lab. Welcome to the lab. Thought I'd try to change up the scenery to illustrate my next point. Now, let's take a look at what makes the Switch tick. If we take a cursory glance at the Switch's hardware, we can see that it is made with an NVIDIA Tegra X1 SoC. SoC stands for System on a Chip, by the way. This might get a little technical, but we're in the lab, so bear with me. Basically, if you know that a desktop computer has a CPU, a GPU, and RAM, as separate components, an SoC is a chip that contains all three of those components in one. This NVIDIA Tegra X1 SoC that Nintendo Switch is using was actually released in 2015. And that's 2 years before the Switch was released in 2017. Now, you may ask, why did Nintendo put a 2-year-old SoC in their console? Well, there are probably a couple of general reasons that we can assume. Cost to manufacture and target audience. If we take a look at other Nintendo consoles from past few console generations, we can see that their prices are lower than their main competitors, Microsoft and Sony. Nintendo achieves lower prices for their hardware by using older technology, much like the SoC that's currently in the Switch. Nintendo knows their goal with their games isn't to blow you away with 8K textures, but to create a fun experience. As long as they make their first-party titles within the limitations of the hardware that they've been provided, and it looks good enough, then Nintendo's kinda fine. That's not to say that Nintendo doesn't make good-looking games. We all know that Nintendo has some amazing-looking games in their library. Art style and direction make so much more of a difference than how many teraflops your console's GPU has.
6 teraflop GPU clocked at 1.172 gigahertz.
Please clap.
Nintendo's first-party developers know how to work within these limitations to create good-looking, fun-to-play games. You gotta give them props, honestly, for being able to take hardware from 2015 and make some stellar-looking games, though. Well, that's all the business we have to do in the lab, so let's get out of here, shall we? Now, the real issues start coming up when we start talking about third-party developers. Games like Call of Duty, Skyrim, Doom Eternal, you know, the big ones, tend to be put on every platform so that they can maximize their ability to generate sales. A lot of these games tend to be high fidelity, lots of high-res textures and assets, lighting effects, all that stuff. You know, systems that were not really designed with the Switch in mind to begin with. These games were built to run on much more powerful hardware first, so porting them over to the Switch can be an issue. It's easy to see Doom Eternal running gloriously on a PC in 4K, at like 120 frames per second, and then look at the Switch version and say, wait a minute. Now granted, you don't need to have an expensive PC to see Doom Eternal in all its glory. The Xbox Series X, S, and the PlayStation 5 versions of this game look amazing too. And you know, don't get me wrong, the Switch version doesn't even look that bad. It's honestly a technical feat that the game even looks and runs as good as it does on the Switch, but it is the worst looking version of the game comparatively. I think it's comparison footage like this that generally makes people ask the question, is the Nintendo Switch too old? Realistically though, the graphic capabilities of consoles doesn't really mean that much to publishers. What really matters is platform sales. If a console sells well, then publishers will find it worthwhile to put their games on that platform, regardless of how much the graphics take a hit. As an example, let's look at the Wii. The Wii was a console that lacked graphics horsepower when compared to others in its generation, but it was the best-selling console of that generation. A lot of people downplayed the Wii's ability to succeed early after its launch. Many people thought it wouldn't sell well, and publishers didn't think their games would sell well on it either, since Nintendo consoles had and kind of still have this reputation for being a Nintendo game machine. You know, as in people usually buy a Nintendo console to play Nintendo first-party games and really not much else. On top of that, the GameCube didn't have stellar sales numbers, so coupled with the fact that Nintendo was going in a radical new direction by jumping headfirst into the deep end with motion controls, people were not too sure that Nintendo would be able to succeed. But the Wii kept selling, and selling. Like I had said before, it became the best-selling console of its generation. And everyone had a Wii. Some people forgot they already had a Wii and bought another one by accident. It was madness. With those sales numbers came the games. Not a lot of major ones, mind you, but there were some more games. I mean, Call of Duty coming to the Wii was a big deal back then. Other than that, there were some other notable titles. Let's take a look at this chart here. These are the third-party sales of the Wii, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. This line represents the PlayStation 3. This line represents the Xbox 360. And then this line represents the Wii. Do you kind of get what I'm talking about now? Now to further illustrate this point, let's take a look at the Wii U. Yeah, the Wii U. We know I don't like the Wii U. But in a stark contrast to the Wii U did not sell nearly as well. However, because the Wii had done so well, publishers were willing to put some faith in Nintendo, and a bunch of third-party games were out for the Wii U at launch. There were even a handful of exclusive third-party titles, ZombiU, Rayman Legends, just to name a couple. Unfortunately for Nintendo, sales never really picked up for the console. For some reason, not that many people felt too compelled to buy their latest console. A big part of that was probably branding. The name Wii U was confusing to a lot of people. Most people, even to this day, thought that it was just an add-on for the original Wii, and not an entirely new piece of hardware. In any case, no one was buying it. The Wii U sold less units than the GameCube, which is really bad if you look at the GameCube's numbers. The larger third-party publishers eventually pulled out and left Nintendo completely in favor of Sony and Microsoft, whose consoles were selling much better. The Wii U wasn't as powerful as the PS4 or the Xbox One, but it wasn't as far behind as the Wii was to the 360 and the PS3. It had some pretty intense games running on it. Assassin's Creed Black Flag comes to mind. And by all accounts, it could have handled ported games better than the Wii could have. You weren't even limited to the Wiimote. You had the option of using a regular controller like the Wii U Pro Controller to play your games. It would have been way easier to actually port games to the Wii U, but because of the player base wasn't as large as the Wii, or large at all really, publishers didn't think it would be profitable enough to even bother porting games to it. Now, by contrast, the Switch is selling far better than the Wii U could ever have dreamed. If we use our 2020 hindsight, we can see that the Wii U was the prototype to the Switch, almost like an alpha version, if you will, that communicated what they wanted to do, but maybe couldn't fully commit due to technology not being there yet or whatever. I had and still have a Wii U. And the amount of times that I thought it would be cool to just take the gamepad with me and play games away from my console was probably too many to count, to be honest. Porting next-gen games to the Switch will be harder and harder as the years go on, but I don't think that will stop publishers from pushing them out if they see that they can make some money from doing so. Not all of these ports will look as good as Doom Eternal does, and it's a little disappointing that next-gen third-party games that will come to the Switch, if they do at all anyway, will be at their worst on that console. The Switch is, of course, a mobile platform, and you may even say that it's not fair to expect it to be able to play games that are ported from other more powerful platforms, which is true. I mean, the Switch is a console with on-the-go play as its main focus, and with the ability to dock it to a home TV setup as a plus. So maybe it would be more fair if we compared it to, say, your phone. There are a lot more serious games on mobile now anyway, so maybe like Genshin Impact is one that jumps to mind, for example. It runs on mobile, and I'm sure the experience to that is actually relatively similar to what you would get on your Switch. Wait, really? Oh, looks like rumors are saying at least that they're having hardware problems with the Switch port. Okay, well, how about a game like PUBG? Yeah, PUBG. PUBG runs on mobile too, so I'm sure the Switch has a version of that runs pretty well too, right? What? Oh, that game just happens to be on every platform except the Switch. Makes you think, don't it? I think it's safe to assume the reason these games are not on the Switch is due to that old, again, 2015 processor that the Switch is using. Mobile phone processors are no slouches. Both the iPhone and Android have some of the best mobile processors on the market. The newer technology in these mobile SoCs can do a lot more with a lot less. Most phones don't even have a cooling fan, while the Switch does. The Switch still falls short, again, because of that old 2015 processor.
So far, Switch has been a kind of poor relation to its mobile cousins in terms of view distance and whatnot, and perhaps that's not surprising. I mean, both the Galaxy S9 Plus and the iPhone X are state-of-the-art mobile products with significant technological advantage over Switch, which operates with a 2015-era NVIDIA Tegra X1 with a downclocked CPU and GPU. The fact that it's this close at all is fascinating. The Switch is actually the weakest mobile device here, but it's still holding its own remarkably well.
So, is the Switch too old? I mean, yeah, I think we kind of established that already. Does it really matter though? No, I don't really think so. As long as there's a healthy population of people who own that console, which at this point there is, I mean, we could look at the numbers again, but there is, publishers will find value in putting their games on that platform. If you are someone who cares about the visual quality of your games, I'm gonna bet that you probably already have another console or a PC that you use to experience those games at their best. The Switch in its current state is suited for more stylized games that are less intense on the system, at least that's my opinion. But hey, it's still cool if you can play Doom Eternal on it, right? Like, that's the whole appeal. You know it's not going to look the best, but that's not the point. It's going to run on a 720p screen anyway, so you just want to be able to say that you can slay demons on the train on your way to work or school, or show off to the person trapped next to you on the airplane that you can play Doom Eternal on the plane. Cool, right? As for a Switch upgrade, which is kind of what everybody talks about, I think at this point we're more likely to get a Switch successor than a Switch Pro. Alright, that's really all I had for today's video, so I hope you found that interesting, hope you liked it, don't throw your Switch away, yeah, whatever, I don't know how to end videos, okay? Just let me live. Anyway, catch you next time, see you in the next video. That was twice. Anyway, bye! Okay.